Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm unhappy to be here. Also the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy, most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have, for the start of Jeffuary, we bring you the original Jeff the Killer plot as constructed by Sesseur, the original author and poster of Jeff the Killer. So, guys, you may be wondering why you're sitting or why you're standing in a plot of manure.
Well, yeah, it was my fault because I suggested this.
Yes. And you may see like yonder. There's that crazy growth of Jeff the Killer plot lines and stories and fandom off yonder on the other side of the patch of fertilizer. So this is where it all started, though. In this heap. So yeah, Jeff the Killer, as told by Sesseur. So from what I've been able to find out online, regarding the original story was, the original image was posted by Killer Jeff on Newgrounds, like the one that everyone knows about when they think of Jeff the Killer, the pale no-nosed creepy face. And then Sesseur, this author and person wrote and created this little video, this 2-minute video with the story that they constructed of how Jeff the Killer came to be and what he does and such. And it lasted online for 8 years before it was eventually taken down by YouTube. But then luckily or unluckily, depending on your viewpoint, someone managed to repost post the video. Now, from what I've heard, the music is different, but the video is the same. So we'll take that with a grain of salt. It's in our description below. But yeah, so I've given it. I sent a link of that video and Sesseur's synopsis of a short story. Hydrochloric acid, Jeff's short story synopsis to my hosts here to discuss or to review, and that's what we're going to discuss today. So I believe we should go down into the rundown of this rundown. All right, we understand that this is a synopsis, and if this is not the full story and is not supposed to be treated as such, we apologize. But in lieu with our format, we are going to give it the same treatment just for posterity. So the basics are Jeff accidentally spilled acid on himself while cleaning his bathtub with hydrochloric acid. It bleached parts of his face and skin. Neighbors sent him or heard his screams and brought him to the hospital. Lou, who appears to be older than Jeff in this plot, was at work at the time and rushed to the hospital when he heard the news. Jeff thereafter developed a hatred for people, both for mocking him and coming to his defense because he thought that they were shallow and just doing it to make themselves feel good. At some point, he bleaches the rest of his skin and carves a smile onto his face, like the Glasgow smile style. He then proceeds to start killing people he deems undesirable, with some help from his brother Lou. They ride a red van with free candy on it. Eventually, through his life of crime and killing, he is caught by authorities and sent to an insane asylum. He does eventually break out, and him and Lou go their separate ways to kind of lay low. And Jeff is still out there with his killer instinct, and maybe he'll kill again. Oh, we'll get to that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, maybe he'll kill again. Ooh, he's out there and he's gonna get you. Finn? That's the bare bones of bare bones rundown of this rundown of a short story that was a 2-minute video, and then a synopsis that Sesseur posted in 2019 of the short story that he wrote, or that he wants to write based off of this.
Wait, that's when that DeviantArt thing was posted?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Okay, fair.
he decided to post it out, post it like years later to like give people like a clear version of what of the events that he wanted to have Jeff the Killer as, because as we all know, like that's not where Jeff died. Like Jeff the Killer did not end with that short video and short story that Sesseur made and that image that Killer Jeff made, which Killer Jeff and Sesseur might be the same person. It's kind of unclear. If anybody out there has any confirmation on either or, please let us know in the comment section. But yeah, that's not where it ended. Like, because obviously we got the other origin story for Jeff the Killer, and then we got just that's where the snowball started rolling down the hill and garnering like the fandom of Jeff the Killer from there. So this is where this is basically the top of the hill, or top of the mud pile, where Jeff the Killer started. So yeah, I'm sorry guys.
You should be.
Hey, we're gonna start Jeffuary from the beginning, from the very start of this whole mess, and then we're going to maybe from here it's all the way it's look it up, right? Like maybe some of the other stories that have grown out of this fandom will surpass the bar that's really close to the ground, but. So anyway, enough stalling. Let's go on to everyone tolerates that grammar inquisitions. At this point, hell, some people even like it.
At least one person does.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to start with this one here. Injuries can cause whitening of the skin with prolonged exposure, plus the crude synthetic skin that was grafted over his injuries was pale white too. And in Jeff's insanity, he bleached the rest of his skin to match his horrifying visage shortly after suffering a psychotic episode by carving a huge grin in his face to emulate any shred of happiness he desperately tried to bring out due to the rest of the complete downward spiral of his life. Okay, that was run on a bit. Oh, but wait. And then on to this one. For a while, he'd been treated as a figure of horror. People would stare at him in fear, laugh to themselves, and with each other in astonishment of Jeff's ghostly features. And the people that would jump to his defense as an idol of virtue signaling for the hypocrites that would defend Jeff and put him on a pity pedestal just to use him as a tool to display how accepting and kind they are to the freak that needed all the sympathy, making Jeff feel much less as a person and as a tool for showing tolerance. Oh no. Oh God. This is all run-on sentence paragraphs for the rest of the story.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed it. Every single paragraph is a run-on sentence.
I didn't notice it until I didn't fully notice it until I think halfway through page 2. And then I was like, wait, because that was the first time I was like, oh man, this is really run-on. This is a whole run-on paragraph. And I was like, wait. And then I went up to the other ones. Yeah, no, they're all run-on sentences. They just don't have periods. So yeah, that's my biggest critique on my biggest overall critique of this the short story or the synopsis is there are almost every paragraph is just one long run-on sentence. Oh God. But I'm not done. Once I got past that, there are other things within the story that had issues, grammar issues and such. As time went on, he slowly stopped going. Yeah. As time went on, he slowly stopped going out a day and practically became a nocturnal force of carnage and destruction. So for this, I feel like it should be he slowly stopped going out during the day, because the way it is, it's slowly stopped going out a day. And I just what? And then the next one here. But but it was not due to something that was out of control. And I think this one, it has to be that it was not, yeah, and it was not due to something that was out of his control. Like, just add that his at the end, because it was, like, the sentence is kind of, some of these sentences are like kind of clunky because they are missing a word or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one here, he had a easy going life, and his life just got started shortly before the event of 2007 changed his life for good. There's a lot of life in there. But that's actually not
just life.
Yeah, that's just life. But that wasn't actually my original grammar inquisition for this one. However, that is noticeable now that I read it out loud. No, the one is actually like he had an easy life, because an before something that starts with an A or an E, or an I as well. Is it just all of those, like A, E, I, O, add an N, or add an
It's like
AN?
It's like any vowel.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like any vowel, like usually you should start with, or you should have like an if you're going to have like an at the beginning of that. And on to my next one.
Except for well, not the Y's though.
Yeah,
It's like it's a banana or a yellow banana rather.
yes. Yeah, just because like
my mind's a little poop right now.
I mean, you are sitting in some poop right now. So.
Yeah, not doing so well over here, guys. As I'm like slowly drowning in it, like
Oh God! Oh no, he found a soft patch or a deep patch.
Yeah,
get him out of there, Mike. Get him out of there, Mikey. But on to my next one here. Jeff nearly attempted suicide, but Lou managed to change his mind, but end up injured and needing a hospital yet again. It was then Jeff used the opportunity to fake his death. Lou wasn't on board at first, but down the line, he agreed and pulled some strings to get a fake death certificate for Jeff. All right, so two things here. First, Lou managed to change his mind, but ended up injured. Because again, past tense, present tense kind of thing. And then this is partially an actual thought, because like a couple of these were just like, wait, what? How did Lou get fake death certificates, or a fake death certificate? Okay, this is kind of a synopsis. So if this was
it's glossed over that he's an adult and he has a job.
Yeah,
and I'm assuming at that job he has sway to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of guessing.
Whatever sort of job that would be.
Yeah, I assume I know what that means, but I assume that if this was a full-on short story, we might get some information about that, or some more details about that. But okay, I'll let it slide for this. On to my next one. This is how he was able to pull of the strings of murders for the first couple of years before the name of Jeff the Killer came to be. So I just need to add an off, like he was able to pull off the string of murders for the first couple of years before the name of Jeff the Killer came to be. Next one here. However, as far as the investigating police was concerned, they were looking for someone that was currently living that went by Jeff the Killer. So, yeah, this one just needs another were in place of that was. So it's, however, as far as the investigating police were concerned, they were looking for, also maybe a comma as well after concerned. I know there's a lot of commas in this story, but maybe like replace that comma at the end where like they were looking for a living person named Jeff the Killer. Put a period there, and then replace that comma and put it in next to concerned. And honestly, that's another thing about this story that I'm just going to like blanket say about the story. It needs to like, there's certain commas in this story that really just need to be periods, because that would first off fix the long run on sentences that make up an entire paragraph. Is because I feel like a lot of the time the commas are just used as breaks for sentences, but they're just not using the right punctuation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And my next one, it wouldn't be years down the line that Jeff Hodek was discovered to be alive and was to be investigated to rule out his involvement in murder. I believe it wouldn't be until years down the line. Again, just another word that's missing. However, after that, I have another instance of this case of missing the until. It wasn't shortly after Jeff would find his mark and escape, rampaging all the way back home. It wasn't until shortly after Jeff, yada, yada, yada. And then my next one, a cop managed to find a lead, but had no idea was the fugitive and asylum escapee. The cop was going in for the arrest, but was swiftly killed by Lou. So in this one, the with shouldn't be there. It should be a which. So, and I mean like WHICH, not, the spellcasting witch.
Although...
but had no idea a witch was needed to figure out who was the fugitive and who was the asylum escapee.
Seems legit.
But yeah, no, it's but had no idea which was the fugitive or asylum escapee. Instead of the and asylum escapee, because it seems like Lou and that's one thing. This is another actual play, or not actual, an actual thought that kind of like melded into my grammar acquisition here. It does seem like this rendition of the story, Jeff and Lou are a murder bro duo, which is actually kind of an interesting idea to play on, because it's certainly in true crime cases and like reality, there are murder families and even like murder duos that are made up of like siblings. So it does kind of help ground a little bit of this, like give it a little bit of credence to like an actual like murderer type scenario. And you also get buddy horror, because Lou and Jeff are buddies, like are bros and buddies in their acts of crime and murder. But I digress. On to my last of the grammar questions that I really care to keep examining on this one. It got worse from there. Jeff and Lou were spotted fleeing the hotel, and a county-wide manhunt was deployed. They couldn't return home. The police were already searching frantically with SWAT team, K9 units, and all the works. So seriously, these run-ons, no period paragraphs, were really annoying to me, especially once I discovered them, once I realized that was what was going on. Also, SWAT teams. Not just singular, I don't think.
What if it's only one SWAT team?
With a SWAT team, then. Add an A then.
SWAT team? Or the SWAT team?
Yeah, with the SWAT team, K9 units, and all the works kind of thing. And then just, like, honestly, for like the periods, for this one in particular, as an example, just put like a period between home and the police. So it's like, it got worse from there. Jeff and Lou were spotted fleeing the hotel, and a county-wide manhunt was deployed. They couldn't return home, period. The police were already searching frantically with the SWAT team, K9 units, and all the works. And yeah, that's basically my grammar positions. There's just a lot of run-on sentences, a lot of certain missing words, or like words that weren't like used properly. Punctuation wasn't used properly. Ow. So Mikey, V stands for evil. I see you have that pitchfork pointed at me.
Well,
I hope that's used for digging up the dung and not, stabbing me.
He is aiming at dung right now.
Well,
where? It's behind me?
Yeah, totally.
Well, you got a lot of it with that shovel that you're holding, so...
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years working on a horse farm and collecting dung, like horse dung out of stalls, like, you learn a thing or two about poop and how to shovel it. Luckily, I never got into bullshit. But yes, your Inquisition.
Yeah, so you've basically gotten all of mine, because the one that annoyed you the most also annoyed me, which was the run-on sentences.
Yeah, I was like, at a point, I was like, should I go full hog and like into detail of like, or like onto this? Like, how much should I leave? Because like I feel like if I'm gonna go like do a full grammar inquisition, am I gonna leave anything for the guys?
Yeah. Basically, every paragraph is a sentence.
Yeah, I think the first one, like the first paragraph, and not the one that like they're doing the synopsis like and stuff like that, and like this is the rundown of the story that of Jeff the Killer, and how he got his scars and stuff like that. But like the one after that, I think there's like a sentence, and then there's another run-on sentence after that sentence.
Yeah.
There's a couple of sentences that are acceptable sizes because they're the tiny paragraphs.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. All right. And then I also have a It Story conjunction, which is just 2 sentences long. So.
And now an It Story with a conjunction junction by Mikey. The E stands for evil. Take it away.
So he knew exactly what he could no longer enjoy due to the shallowness of the world. His social life was in shambles, and he eventually faked his death and cut ties with the people he knew, either because they turned on him or because he was too ashamed and didn't want the remaining friends that were loyal to get wrapped up. Jeff nearly attempted suicide, but Lou managed to change his mind but ended up injured and needing a hospital yet again. It was then Jeff used the opportunity to fake his death. Lou wasn't on board at first, but down the line he agreed and pulled some strings to get a fake death certificate. It got worse from there. Jeff and Lou were spotted fleeing the hotel, and a countrywide manhunt was deployed. They couldn't return home. The police were already searching frantically, with SWAT team, canine units, and all the work. Finn.
I mean, yeah, it's only two two examples. So in a normal story, that would be like pretty good. But the problem is this story's kind of cheating by not having any periods.
Yeah.
So like it's all commas. So technically, it's all one word. It's all connected. Also, I feel like the period should probably be under like rather in that last sentence when I said like a period would go between home and the police. Maybe put it even between deployed and they couldn't return home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just one little fix that like out of a number of dozen leaks in this boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all you have for the Grammar Inquisition?
Yeah, you've gotten most of the other ones. So,
Gamer.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
I do good. Are you okay over there? Or, like you seem to be now like waist deep in the manure.
Yeah.
Did you find another deep patch?
A little bit, yeah. They're all of them.
It's a good thing you have those waders on that I gave you.
Yeah. Jeeves and Clarence are pretty good to stand on. They're keeping me a little bit higher. Got him.
Okay, yeah.
I just imagine two waiters like holding like serving trays and standing on the serving trays.
Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be the title card. It's just like two snobby waiters holding you up by via the platters they're holding.
Hell yeah!
You're still going to be covered in shit.
That's fine. That's totally fine. I'll tactical yellow anyways. So
yes,
the way this whole thing starts was pretty confusing. Where it's basically just saying like, basically the way this starts, it's like a very simple rundown to get an idea of what I see the start. There's 2 starts in this technically, because the first one is basically an intro, and then it actually starts on the second paragraph.
Yeah.
So on that actual start, it's an odd way to start it with "that was the acid" to start a story, because it sounds like it's referring to previous sentences that don't exist.
But it's actually referring to the title of the whole short story synopsis with the hydrochloric acid.
Oh,
yeah, that's honestly my first actual thought. Is why wasn't the hydrochloric acid put in like that detail put into the beginning of the story rather than you just referencing the title.
I mean, it would work better if the intro wasn't there. Read the title
yeah.
and then immediately go into the story with that was the acid, because it just talked about hydrochloric acid in the title.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because also everything that's said in the little intro section is said throughout the story anyway, so it's a little unnecessary.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's it's it's almost like, or even like that could have been like put in at the bottom, or just don't have it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of done up.
That's fine. Go ahead.
But it is kind of like done up, like it is because it is a journal entry on their DeviantArt account, so it is kind of like you can sometimes fall into that where you're like, oh, like this is what I had planned idea for. Here we go, and then just like, but he doesn't even have like a break from that. Like there's no line or anything like that. It just goes right into the story, so as if that is part of the story.
But yeah, with that being said, I did rewrite this little the starting section just so it's a little clearer, just the way it starts.
Sure.
I rewrote it to Jeff was disfigured during an accident with the acid he was using to try to unblock and clean out a clog in the bathroom drain, as opposed to the one that's in the story that says that was the acid that disfigured Jeff when he was trying to unblock and clean out the persistent clog that was inside the bathroom drain. Yeah. So it just kind of needs a cleaner start, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like the addition of of what kind of acid it is would help.
That too. Well, it doesn't. It's in the title though.
Yeah. Oh, so just like get rid of that rundown, or that like that little like that first paragraph that kind of bleeds into it.
I mean, you can leave that. It's just, but my problem is the start of the second paragraph, which is the start of the actual story, because the first paragraph is just a rundown of the entire story, which is a rundown of a story. Ow, my brain hurts. But it's just weird that paragraph starts with "that was the acid."
Gotcha.
Meanwhile, there's no acid referenced previously in the story aside from the title.
Okay. Yeah.
But it would have worked if it wasn't for those pesky kids and their little dog too. But if the intro wasn't there, it would have worked the way it is now. Yeah. The way it changed has to happen. Moving on.
Okay.
So the problem with moving on is you know how when you were doing your stuff, Cultist, you're like, I didn't want to like go whole hog and stuff.
Did you go whole hog? Did you seriously go through like every paragraph?
I mean, wrote the entire story.
I mean, I did go back and like try and see what I could find like that was like problematic and not just like a run-on sentence thing, because like the run-on sentence thing, like it's just so overpowering over the story. It's like, all right, no, this just needs like you need to go back, reread your story, and get rid of some of those commas and add some periods. Like,
yeah,
that's my quick
I rewrote
fix.
all these because I'm like, well, there needs to be like a freaking example of how to change it. Because if you just say go back and switch some of the periods and commas around, it might not actually do it, right?
All right, so mine was the quick fix, and now for the more in-depth grammar inquisition.
But here's the thing: if I read all this, I'm reading the entire story.
Yeah,
like when I was 3/4 of the way doing this, I'm like, I'm doing the whole story. How am I going to do this? I've already committed. I got to finish. But
no, I get you. It's like because I had the same issue. I went the other route of like, all right, I'm just gonna like say what's wrong and give some instructions on how to fix it, but not like give like full examples, because that would be the entire goddamn story. Like it's a fickle thing to do. But like when the story, when the entirety of the story needs those kind of fixes, like, yeah, you have to kind of like choose your battles.
Yeah.
And
the problem is some of these corrections I've done aren't just run-on corrections.
They're the other things that I was also like mentioning.
Some of them probably, yeah.
So do you want to just?
What I'm gonna do?
Okay.
I should have thought this through better. I woke up and I'm like, shit, I need to read this. I'm recording in like 2 hours. Like, oh god, run-ons. I'll just do all the run-ons first. I'll get a couple of notes and I'll be done.
In true Game in Yellow fashion, you decided like to wait till the very end to like speed run the story.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm going to take a minute to read my correction, and then I'll mention the actual correction that isn't just run-on correction, because we've run on about the run-ons enough.
Yeah. Much like how we've done a rundown of basically a rundown.
Pretty much, yeah.
Redundancies.
Mm-hmm. However, I can copy and paste this all together into a cohesive whole if someone out there cares enough for it.
Yeah, no, if you want, even like we can leave a link in the description of your punctuation corrections and such.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can 100% do that if you'd rather have that than read the entire story in its entirety.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, you have a hard enough time telling people that we are not a narration podcast. If I'm actually narrating, then...
you're yeah. This is the one case where like we're narrating, but because we're narrating a fully our own like edited version of the story that is presented.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So this first one, there's a section that says Fruit's synthetic skin that was grafted over his injuries was pale white too, and in Jeff's insanity, blah 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 blah. So I corrected that to his injuries were including whitening of his skin with I completely rewrote that a little bit. His injuries were including whitening of the skin with the prolonged exposure.
Yeah.
Like in regards to the prolonged exposure from the acid, it whitened his skin.
Yeah. It makes it a little bit more clear what's going on.
The way that this is said, in Jeff's insanity, he bleached the rest of his skin to match his horrifying visage. Visage? What is that?
Visage. It's visage.
Visage, yeah.
Yeah.
Shortly after suffering a psychotic episode by carving a huge grin in his face. So I don't know if in his insanity he bleached the rest of his skin to a horrifying visage, and then that's what he did in his insanity. And then shortly after suffering a psychotic episode, like when he's recovered from being super psychotic, he's back to normal psychotic, he carved the grin in his face. Or is it like both during the same bout of insanity?
Yeah, the way it is read, it's kind of confusing. It's almost like maybe he had another psychotic, like during another psychotic episode, he carved the Glasgow smile.
Yeah, the second one I had is in Jeff's insanity, he bleached the rest of his skin to match his horrifying visage shortly after suffering a psychotic episode. Period. He carved a huge grin. So it's saying like,
oh, okay.
No, it should be during a psychotic episode, not after. Because after means he recovers from it.
You'd think, yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like during his psychotic episodes, he bleached his skin and carved that in his face. Or it's saying, like, he's looking at his face when he's normal amount of insane. He's like, oh, it looks all uneven and stuff. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go whole hog and just bleach my face white. And then after doing that, he's like, he goes extra insane and then carves his face into his Glasgow smile. Yeah. It's one of those two options. Moving on from paragraph 1. We are now on paragraph 2. Let's see. And some people that would, quote unquote, jump to his defense as an idol for virtue.
Yeah.
Should be as an idol for virtue.
Yeah.
And then right after that, it says, as an idol for virtue, let me read it all at once and not stop. As an idol for virtue, signaling the hypocrites that would defend Jeff.
No, that's not two. Virtue and signaling are actually one word because it's a term. Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling?
Yeah, virtue signaling is a term online for like white knighting and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought that was virtue, signaling for the hypocrites to show up.
It's a term online for like kind of like it's like that kind of it's the guff about like social justice warrior stuff.
Okay.
It's like a lot of the trolls and stuff was like, oh, stop virtue signaling and stuff like that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, I did not know that was a
that's definitely
thing.
A term, and I'm unfortunately privy to it because I browse Twitter a lot.
Poor soul.
Yeah.
But either way, not knowing that, I corrected it to as an idol for virtue, putting him on a pity pedestal. Like I just removed all the virtue signaling, or I removed the signaling and the hypocrites thing because like. At this point, I didn't know why they were being referred to as hypocrites, because they weren't really being hypocrites. They were just being like white knights to him, basically.
Well, that's the hypocrisy. Like they're coming to his defense, but to Jeff, they're coming to his defense as like only as a way for themselves to feel better about themselves because they're helping.
Yes, but that's only blatantly said later on.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you should lead with the explanation of as to why they're hypocrites. Or remove this first hypocrite part and then go into it later. And then after that point, you can keep referring to them as hypocrites because it's been explained.
Okay, for sure. Yeah.
And then the last correction I did is just to break up a sentence so it's a run-on related thing. It's basically changing after it says freak that needs all the sympathy in quotations. making Jeff feel blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I ended it on freak that needs sympathy. Went period. End result, comma, making Jeff feel like blah 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 blah. Because the sentence before it was so huge, I didn't want to continue it even further. So I had to figure out a way to stop it.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
Then paragraph 3 and 4 here, we have a problem because paragraph 3 ends with a comma, so they're both one sentence.
Oh god. Yeah, like I guess I mean, well, the comma and the period are right next to each other on keyboard, so like I have to wonder if maybe it was just like they're typing so fast that they did that and they just didn't bother editing their journal entry thing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
that one for sure. I'm pretty damn certain that one was a mistake because it's comma, enter, down to the next line, and then capital B. So it was clearly meant to be a period, although hilariousslash, it is a giant sentence.
Yeah, because I mean, I've had issues like that, like where I've gone to like type in ... and I've ended up typing / like right next to it because there's that slash right next to it.
Oh yeah.
So like, but I'll see it. I was like, oh no, that's not what I want. Exit out, or like comma.
Yeah.
So like that happened. That happened this week. Yeah, like that happened this week on Discord or like on like a messenger or something like that when I went to type in like ... because I was typing too fast, and my poor meaty hands.
Of course. Yeah. That being said, even if I assume that last comma at the end of that paragraph is a period, each one is still a really long sentence.
Yeah, no, it's paragraphs long.
Yeah.
And again, for a full like deconstruction of the punctuation of the story, please refer to our link to Gamer in Yellow's.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Like we can even like make that as a PDF, post it somewhere that I can then link to if we want.
Yeah, I'll do something like that.
Okay.
Again, I'm just quickly browsing over this to see if there's anything of note to bring up specifically.
Yep.
That isn't just me restructuring it. Here it says they appear to see Jeff as someone who is completely normal, but those types of people wouldn't be patronizing and quickly jumping to the defense of a normal person. So, are they being patronizing to him?
That's how he sees it. Is what I'm getting from this. Is like he basically hates the people that mock him and laugh at him, but he equally hates. That. Yeah, like that. That's just how he's seeing it. Like that. Yeah, because they're patronizing him. Like because like it's to patronize is to basically like mock in a mock support, basically, like to feign supporting somebody is to patronize, or like to kind of like
the actual definition is treat in a way that is apparently kind or helpful, but that betrays a feeling of superiority. So he's saying that they're apparently being helpful, but they're doing it in a way that makes them seem like they're better than him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they're not weird, I guess.
Because like they're like, oh, look at us, we are helping this downtrodden, disfigured, unfortunate soul, kind of thing. Like that's where it comes from for patronizing them.
Okay. Yeah. I'm recently finding out that I don't use derogatory terms enough to know them. Like I've heard the word patronize before, but I've never had to use it. So I'm like, I don't fucking know.
so what I'm getting here is Gamer in Yellow is very gullible.
No, I'm just too much of a good boy.
Yeah.
I don't need to find all these like extra words to insult people because I so rarely insult people in general.
Yeah, unless it's me for lulz.
Well, yeah, that's just for the lulz though.
Yeah,
that's fine because you understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. Shut up. Okay.
It's yeah.
The one thing I did with these two paragraphs actually is I don't know if this is the right thing to do because it would make a massive paragraph, but I combined them because they talk about the same damn thing.
Yeah, like as long as there's sentences in there, I mean, you can have like longer paragraphs. Just like if it's all one subject, then like it's got to be that one long paragraph.
Because that's the way I'm seeing it. Yeah, I sectioned it all out into smaller sentences and everything, but the way I see paragraphs is if it switches to a new paragraph, there has to be some shift in focus. If both of them are talking about the same damn thing, they might as well be the same paragraph. Yeah. Paragraph should be split by a shift in perspective or a shift in topic or by dialogue. Because this whole thing is talking about these other people that are being quote unquote good and helping him, And the second paragraph starts with, by them doing that to Jeff, all it proves is that they're treating him differently, blah, blah, blah. They're still talking about it. So,
yeah, they're still talking. I mean, yeah, like if you want, you could have like restructured it completely by having the first paragraph to be about like them like coming to his aid and stuff like that, and then have the next paragraph shift to his perspective of like, oh, they're just doing this to make themselves feel better and stuff like that. Because it is shifting perspective. It's not shifting the topic, but it's shifting the perspective from like what is actually happening and what he feels is happening.
The problem with that though is like he says one sentence in my my restructure and then immediately goes into how he views them as negative. So it would be a paragraph that is one sentence. So no.
Oh God, no.
Most of it is negative towards these white knights. Okay, this next one is when it's talking about like he grew his hair out from neglect of his personal care, blended into the night, blah blah blah, dropping on his victims. So that's the first. Well, I guess this kind of bleeds into an actual thought, but I mean, seem to be doing that anyways.
I accidentally did because like there's a couple. I was like, do I really want to like quote the exact same like line in my actual thoughts, or should I just like include it in my grammar acquisition?
Yeah, pretty much. Might as well.
Yeah. That
being said, I would be saying all my things now because everything is quoted.
Exactly.
So I'll save some stuff, but regardless, I'm putting this into grammar because it doesn't say that he's still doing the murdering thing, because it says like he's trying to blend in and like not be harassed by people. So you figure he'd be trying to change his ways, but he's still killing. It's just he's trying to do it on the DL more.
Yeah. He's
but
not.
It doesn't really say that. You only get the feel of that from reading it.
Yeah. Again, I think that also falls in with the reason that the fact that this is a synopsis, and so we're not getting the full details of a short story.
Yeah.
Like we're almost supposed to like already know that for some reason, or from like maybe from something else. But like this is basically the synopsis for the short story.
Mm-hmm. So we don't know a year that this is set, correct? The year 2007 is thrown in here.
The year 2007 is when when the acids accident happened, which I learned not from this, but from somebody on the Super Epic Failpedia, who made an entry for the person who made a basically an article on the Sesseur version of Jeff the Killer, and they go into like in their biography like prior to the accident, blah blah blah, and then it's like it basically the biography pulls from both the little video and the story and the story synopsis. So the accident is November 2007. Jeff was hauling a gallon of acid into his bathroom when it spilled and spilled all over him. And then like that's where all that kind of came from.
See, okay, here's the problem with me reading this.
Yes,
I've read the quote unquote first one, the one that everyone talks about, and I've read the actually acceptable one, and those two have a very similar setup where Jeff is a older teenager, Lou is a little boy, bullies and adults are assholes. Get back at the world. That's the short form of that. Because that was in my brain, and it's saying like the event of 2007 changed his life for good.
I thought it was
connecting that the event of 2007 was either just like he had an accident with the goo, with the acid, or that is referencing the other story.
Yeah.
And this is actually a like a sequel to what's happened to him since then after getting away.
But that's not the case.
Yeah, but because of that, I kept thinking, like, how is Lou going to pull strings when he's a boy? He's a little boy.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Yeah, like I know because we've all heard of the because this one got pulled away. Like people pulled this off the internet and like pulled things off the internet and stuff like that. And there's even when it was just this, there's not a whole lot here from like to really. That's my big thing. Like. I dare say that the other ones are a little bit more coherent in giving us a reason for why Jeff is a psychotic or like is the killer he is, other than he's just naturally a psychotic killer, which is what this one kind of proposed. Is that like there's no push to psychosis other than he spilled acid on himself and became disfigured, and was fed up. I mean, it's a slightly different angle where he's just fed up with people mocking him and patronizing him. So that's why he snapped. But it happens after the incident of spilling acid on himself. It's definitely I don't want to say infantile, but it's like it's the Jeff the Killer origin in its infancy state, and then somebody went along and made the origin a little bit more coherent, a little bit more. Gave it a little bit more of a push in another kind of silly way with these bullies breaking into like a 10-year-old's like birthday party with guns, and they throw Javax on him and alcohol and set his face on fire kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then to like the 2017 version, it was 2017, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Future me can correct me. But the one where he became basically Two-Face, which was a lot more coherent. Like that's what this one, like this is basically 2015. Yes, sorry, 2015. And this one is like basically like the most like abstract and like the fledgling seedling of the Jeff the Killer mythos, or like not expanding, but fandom, like, or like the fiction, where like it's the first ideas of Jeff the Killer that haven't matured yet into a coherent story, or given us like details that would like help explain why Jeff is pushed to become a killer, other than like simpler, like kind of like high school angsty kind of reasons, like no one understands me, or I'm such an ugly like monster because of my disfigurement. I hate the world. I want to see it burn, like that kind of thing. So like like that, but we don't get that. So even when I was reading, it's like the event of 2007 is like, well, okay, well, it's got to mean that. But then when I read that biography on the Super Epic Failpedia, which gives us the kind of a more cohesive like breakdown of his biography, based on both the video, the synopsis, and there's another one, but I can't find it at all. It's called "Hi, I'm Killer Jeff," and it's the Newgrounds stuff. But as far as I could tell, that all that's there over on Newgrounds is the image, and like the guy introducing the image. So, based on like that, I'm basically just like, I found out that the accident of 2007 was just him like spilling acid on himself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
But long and short of my point here is, because I don't know that Lou is a grown ass man with a job, because I have past experience with Jeff the Killer, I'm assuming it's a little boy, and it's all confusing. But in this section, if that was the case, and in 2007 he was like carrying the acid to like help his dad clean out the freaking the tub, and he tripped, and he was a teenager then. And if we're trying to establish that this is later on, then around here I would say over a span of 10 years he slowly stopped going out during the day and stuff like that, to show that time has passed.
Yeah.
But at this point, I
help.
Realized that I kind of came into this with the wrong view, because I came into here trying to connect it to the popular version of Jeff the Killer, and the ones that we read previously. Meanwhile, this is the first one, so I should, from now on, is what I'm going to do, is go in here with a blank slate. Just, I don't know what the Jeff the Killer is. These are all new characters to me. I'm going to let it explain them the way it explains them, without me putting any of my past knowledge onto it, because it kind of wrecked this a little bit for me.
Yeah, because you came in here with preconceived conceptions of what Jeff the Killer is, because of the more popular icon, basically, like what he had become on the internet.
And this paragraph is the first one that mentions him killing, because everything else before this was him just complaining about the world, complaining about people that are scared of him, and complaining about people that are trying to help him but they're patronizing him. And then at this point is when it starts to say, like, I can blend into the night and drop into my victims. So this is the first part where it's mentioning that he's still killing, but it does it kind of like nonchalantly. It's not saying like blend into the night to drop in my victims. His urge to kill is still very much with him, like even though he's trying to get away from it or whatever. There just needs to be something else there, in my opinion.
No, for sure. Like, and again, like if this was a full short story, we'd get, I assume we would get like his first kill, or like what the tipping point.
And it wasn't even shown.
Yeah, no, we don't even get that. We just, all we have to go on is like, he's a killer. That's all you got to know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because all those important things, like the first kill and everything, are missing, I'm filling in the blanks with the previous Jeff the Killer things I've read.
Yeah, you're filling it in with the content.
Wrong.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? That's another it is something to talk about on this, because even the video doesn't really explain his first kill or like why. He's just a psychopath.
Yeah.
Who hates the world. Like he's killing undesirables that he doesn't like. And
for all we know, he's not actually killing anyone. He's just making a lot of claims and being spooky.
Yeah, exactly.
Not doing anything bad.
And I mean, like that's basically like, you could say that's basically a lot of like edgy teen stuff. It's like just basically like just like pumping yourself up. It's like, oh yeah, I've totally killed some people. I'll fucking gut you, man. Like that's straight up a line in the little video is like, he'll fucking gut you.
Yeah.
Like as if, and then it starts talking as if Jeff the Killer is the one that posted the video. It's like, because like this is a photo that me and Lou took of like a bunch of spiders in a corner.
That's right.
Yeah. Again, I'll have the video and this synopsis, like this synopsis, also linked in the description below for anybody to check out. Like, yeah, it's. I've got. I'll go into it a little later. This is still your thing, your side of things. But like, yeah, it's just it's weird.
In this next section, there's this part that's kind of a little too wordy, in my opinion, in regards to him faking his death. It says, and he eventually faked his death and cut ties with the people he knew, either because they turned on him or because he was too ashamed and didn't want the remaining friends that were loyal to get wrapped up. I corrected that to he eventually faked his death and cut ties with people he knew, period. Everyone he knew either turned on him or he cut the ties, or he cut ties on the good ones because he was too ashamed of himself and didn't want the remaining friends that were loyal to be wrapped up.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just like, wait, what?
Reading those two back to back, they almost sounded exactly the same, but yeah. Then right after that, it's saying how he cut ties with everyone, and then it starts talking about how he's hanging out with Lou all the time. So it kind of goes back on itself.
Yeah, because like it should have said like, except for Lou, who's helping him like stay off the grid and stuff.
Exactly, and that's how I corrected it too. All except Lou. He couldn't abandon his brother. Period.
Bam.
Because at that point, it's not even mentioned that Lou is a character or his brother. I think that's when he's introduced.
Yeah, I think so. Because this is also like, again, you're supposed to have like watched the other video and stuff like that at this point to kind of get some inkling of it and stuff like that. And like, so because in the video it also shows that like Lou is an adult, not a child.
Yes. And also looks almost exactly like the Jeff the Killer picture. Did you notice that?
No.
If you take the glasses off and bleach his face white, he's got like the same face shape and hair and everything.
Oh,
I found a really good comparison.
Well, okay.
What?
Sorry, I was like, would you like to? Do you have a link to it? Or?
No.
Okay. You said you found a side. Oh, you like if you were to like take a side by side kind of reference of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like when I watched the video, it showed the Jeff the Killer picture, and then it went on to show Lou. And before it popped up saying that it was Lou, I thought it was going to be Jeff because it looked like the picture.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Mikey? Oh, okay.
You can hear us. He was just saying,
He got interrupted by somebody, I think, on his end because he's also muted himself.
Oh. So the next part, this is when he's in the hospital and chatting with Lou, being like, I should fake my death and all that stuff here. I have a question. What job would Lou have where he could help get a death certificate for Jeff?
My guess is actually probably some kind of a hospital. Either I'm thinking like a paramedic or like a nurse at a hospital, or maybe even a coroner. So maybe he is working at he's working in a medical field of some kind,
I guess.
Or maybe
I feel like it should be mentioned.
Yeah, well, of course. Like there's a bunch of stuff that should be mentioned in this story, but it's a synopsis. So, but yeah, no, that's an interesting thing. Like, because like, what if Lou is also like maybe he went in for like forensics or something, or maybe he has a completely regular job, but he bribed somebody to like somebody in the black market or the dark web to give him a death certificate for Jeff.
Or he knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mikey, would you like to get in on suggestions for Lou's occupation?
For Lou's occupation.
In regards to him having the ability to pull strings to get a death certificate.
Yes.
So I was writing down that correction. I was just thinking, like, what the hell job would he have?
Yeah.
So I just left
Yeah.
it blank that you would put a job title in there.
Well, working in a morgue.
Yeah, so like a coroner kind of thing, or like a forensic pathologist. I think was the
Do they officially like write down and jot, like do all the stuff when someone officially dies, or would it be like a
if
doctor?
only occupation for certifying death.
Just be a
I
doctor.
feel like it might just be a doctor, honestly.
Currently, only physicians, coroners, and in prescribed circumstances, RNECs are permitted to certify deaths in Ontario. So that's in Canada.
Okay, so he's probably a
there-
doctor.
Yeah, so it's probably a doctor or a coroner.
Yeah.
Is my
Okay.
guess. Yeah, it seems like it's coroner or so somebody in the working in the hospital, probably either like a doctor, or like the morgue tech, who actually does like the autopsies and stuff. They're the ones that like write off on certificates of death and such.
Okay. So the next section is where basically it's as far as everyone knew. Actually, okay, I'm gonna mention this correction.
So also before another occupation he could have, forger. He could just be like a kind of like illegally forging the document.
Oh yeah, just do it himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's just like occupation criminal.
Mm-hmm. So this next paragraph, it starts with as far as everyone knew, as far as everyone that Jeff knew was aware of. What? As far as everyone that knew Jeff was aware of, Jeff Hodak was dead. So I corrected that to as far as everyone knew, Jeff Hodak was dead.
Yeah, that's all you. Oh my god!
Say.
Like it's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple.
Yeah, that too.
To not be like too mean, but yeah,
that is the same. This section here, though, Hodak brothers did what they could to elude police. Would it be elude or evade?
It's elude. There is. I think it's done. I think it said wrong in this one. Hang on. Elude. Okay, so yeah, no, it's actually ELUD is the elude they want, because that's a transitive verb to avoid.
Evade or escape from danger.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, but yeah, they're using elude, which is like which is the ALLUDE, which is
to suggest or call attention.
Exactly. So it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
To go with ELUDE.
So yeah, but also evade would also work as well. But yes. I think they were going for the elude with an E.
Mm-hmm. This next section, the odds stacked against Jeff would become a fugitive, forcing him to be even more careful, relocating all around Jersey until he was caught. So when I read until he was caught, I thought it was just saying like he's thinking like, oh, my life is just I'm going to be moving all around New Jersey until I'm caught. But it's actually saying like this is what happened. He was moving around a whole bunch and he was caught.
Yeah.
So when I first read it, it gave me a different feel to how it was actually supposed to be. So the way I rewrote it is just simply put until he was eventually caught. Just putting the word eventually in there makes it seem more final and like it actually happened.
Sure.
At least in my opinion.
Sorry, I'm agreeing with you, so I don't really have anything else to like. I'm not trying to counter you or anything like that. So I have like, yeah, no, I agree.
Mm-hmm. You got that one. So move on. Just a couple more.
Okay.
So I'm gonna read this. Redo this last paragraph, or sorry, this last sentence in this paragraph when it's talking about. I'll just read it. By the end of it, Jeff and Lou were able to get a second chance. They changed their identities and were transported to a farm on open acres with a tree line seen from the distance in the state of Ohio. So I reworded that to they changed their identities and were transported to a farm with open acres and through the tree lines, a distant view of the state of Ohio. Just like the way he was describing the tree lines in relation to Ohio, like it was confusing.
Yeah, I'm also
I didn't really understand what they're trying to.
That's what I'm trying to figure out with that sentence is like, did they get a second chance by the government or something, and now they're on an open rehabilitation facility or something, or are they just like they got a farm but themselves and are now just like living in like off the grid and stuff on this farm.
They bought the farm,
But
but not in the traditional sense of being murdered.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Like I don't know what it's very confusing as to like what happened at the end with them. Like did like because like oh they got a second chance, and they got their identities changed. It's like are they in the like murderers like protective program or something?
Apparently.
Like because it seems like it's like the farm is like almost like the way it's described with open field and like and a tree line and stuff like that. And it's like, is that like for like good sight lines against like intruders or like escapees? Like are they still prisoners just on this farm or
like a low key prison? I don't know.
So weird. Yeah.
It needs a little bit more explanation as to how they managed to do this and not just immediately get shot as soon as they got back in town.
Yeah.
And the last grammar-related thing I have here is in regards to the ending. The ending, because there's like a little bit at the end. And my main specific thing to bring out here, actually two things. Where it's saying like Jeff's got his killer instinct still. He loves the game. And then it says Lou's child is displaying psychotic traits. Like the kid just kind of pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah, Lou just apparently has a kid.
Yeah. With an unknown gender, because it's he/she.
Well, that's why, like, almost like they're in the like a protective program, like the what is that? What's that? That term where like people go into hiding.
Protective custody.
Yeah, they're in like almost like protective custody kind of way.
Okay, but why don't they know the gender of Lou's child? The doctor knows it the second they pop out.
Well, they know, but like they don't want like I guess like the author of the story doesn't want to like say who, if it's a he or she. Like I don't know. Like as sequel bait kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's sequel bait regardless. Like if they just said she may mature into a psychopath, like with that's still sequel bait.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just the fact that the child just mentioned it should be like Lou has fathered a child in which is displaying psychotic traits. So like in his new life, he met someone and they fathered a child together.
Yeah.
And he's acting more normal than Jeff. He being Lou.
Yeah. Lou's able to like get past.
He's able to lose the psychotic tendencies easier.
Okay. Are you done?
Cunning? Never. My notes? Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, you bringing up the last little sentence there is actually kind of a good like kind of segue to my one and only actual thought really at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like we get that ending where it's like they're on the farm and they are like he's trying to get trying to like Jeff is trying to resist his psychotic tendencies and some of that, and now like Lou's child is also showing similar tendencies, and like now they're like are they going to expand out into like a killer just like Jeff and Lou and stuff like that? I'm just like, okay, so from the sounds of this short story synopsis, it really leans into the sympathetic side of Jeff. And to me, that's really not working out. Just like from reading this and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you can garner some sympathy for Jeff prior to the foyer into murder. Like early on in the story when he's being treated poorly by everybody and stuff like that, you can kind of garner some sympathy for him, like because he's being treated poorly by society and such. But once he starts killing people, yeah, no, I don't have like. There's not much of a like. He's not showing any remorse for his killings. He's casually he's casually murdering people throughout most of the story with very little remorse for his killing. So, as it's kind of stated here, that kind of like sympathy for the devil or sympathy for the killer, just to me it comes off very like high school edgelordy and silly, like this character is so deep and dark and grim because of how society's treated him, and isn't it cruel that he kills people that he doesn't like? I wish I could do that. I want to grab a katana from the local thrift store or something, so I can wear it and also wear a trench coat while I have a katana. So edgy and dark. Like it's probably because I'm older now, and like I'm sure I thought this was cool and fun when I was in high school, but like now it's just like, oh god, this is so cringy and edgelordy. Like this kind of sympathy. It's like it to me, like because there's no redemption here for Jeff because he doesn't have any remorse at all for killing. He's a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah, it's one thing. Okay, one thing that I think would help his cause.
Yeah.
Is if they explained at least like 2 of the murders he did, and explain it to the point where it's like, tell me about the victim. Why are they such a big asshole that they deserve it?
Yeah, because like in slasher flicks, because that's kind of what Jeff is a slasher.
Yeah.
You need to give like there's 2 types of victims in a slasher flick. It's the ones that you don't want to die because they're so likable as a character, and you actually hate the slasher for doing it, or you feel like that emotional like sympathy for the victim, not the antagonist. And then there is the victim that is that guy or that douchebag who is just like, all right, please get Jason to just come in here and just kill this motherfucker. Like, just end him. Like, that's the kind of like, but we don't get any of that because we just know we're just getting like Jeff's side of things. Like, oh, he hates, like, these people are assholes, or these people, like, he thinks these people are assholes and deserving of death and stuff like that. It's like, well, we need to know a little bit more about those victims first. Or like, yeah, he's just killing unnamed like victims.
Yeah. I mean, it pokes at like a different kind of horror where it's an unfeeling, you know what? It's a very Cthulhian kind of thing where it's an unfeeling kind of
hatred,
monstrosity that's just killing for the sake of it that we can't really understand.
Yeah.
Or we're not meant to understand.
Yeah. Or even to like a degree, like that's Jason to a degree.
Oh, he has his motives. He has very clear motives.
Okay, I'd say that's actually more like Michael Myers, because Michael Myers, like, he's a psychopath. He just kills.
Yeah,
like,
he does. You're right.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, it's less. Yeah, Jason has an excuse, has a reason. Also, the example I was going to give for this, like the reason why you shouldn't give this much sympathy on the once the killer's like has no remorse for killing and stuff. It's like trying to give Freddy Krueger sympathy when the parents of the community burned him alive in his lair, and he sought revenge for his death, like post-mortem, or like right before he died, he cursed the family, like said that he'd be back and and kill their children and some of that. The thing is, though, at that point, Freddy had already brutalized and probably molested some children in his lair, so
yeah,
he was already a vile. Like, the accusations were already against him. And so at that point, he shouldn't be considered a sympathetic character. He should be the scary boogeyman archetype, like Freddy Krueger is in the stories. There's some it's like, oh man, like this community like ganged up on this poor man, in his kind of downtrodden home. You know, that same home where he molested a child, or was a serial molester, like child molester and stuff like that. Like, in some of the early like Freddy like in the early Freddy fiction, it's not really said that he's a child molester. It's more just like he murdered children. But in like the remakes and stuff like that, they've definitely made him out to be like a child molester. And yes, he deserved to die because he is a monster. Like, yeah, at this point, like it's just giving this kind of sympathy to this type of like killer, especially like with the actions and stuff he's doing. It comes off very like childish and infantile, of like a perspective, like high school kind of perspective of like the emo kid and such. And it also sends mixed messages of your narrative. Like, what are you trying to get at here? Like,
yeah,
why are
it's
you
kind of weird where they're saying like, oh, look at this sympathetic guy. He's really sad because his face got fucked up. All he wants to do is murder. What's so bad with that? You know, like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of thing that like high schoolers do kind of come up with. Like, I remember coming up with some very immature and like undeveloped character types of a similar vein, like in my high school years, like my later high school years even. And like I think back on those now, it's like, yeah, no, that was a kind of a dumb like perspective, but it makes sense because I was like an angst, like I shouldn't say every, but most kids in high school and stuff like that, like because of puberty and shit, they're all getting angsty and like rebelling against the world and stuff because they don't fully understand it and they don't understand themselves. Blah 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 blah. Childhood psychology. But yeah, this kind of killer, like this kind of entity, and character can be likable and enjoyable, but also despicable. But you got to remember, they are also despicable and vile because they are villainous and evil monsters. Like, it's why we enjoy slasher flicks.
With Jeff the Killer, they never make him as the villainous, vile murderer. His whole shtick is he's quote unquote likable.
I know.
That's his whole
and that's kind of the issue with it.
Yeah.
like, and again, like it happens with like other stuff too. Like it's not just like Jeff the Killer is not a an anomaly. Like, I think it's probably the nature of how his fandom got started was like a bunch of tweens and teens were just like, oh man, this character's so cool. And some of that, like, oh, I kind of relate to this character being like picked on, and so he took it upon himself to kill his pursuers. Like, yeah, you can have that story, like that is a story to go with, but this story doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of that, or it's very vague on like his whole like methods and stuff. Like
that story you just explained is the 2015 Jeff the Killer.
Yes. And like, yeah, it's just the story, like. His purpose for being for killing and stuff like that isn't really present in the story. He's just a killer. Whereas, like, I think
he's a killer because we say he is.
Exactly, yeah. Or he's a psychotic. He's a psychopath with psychotic traits and like an urge to kill and stuff like that because we say he does. There's no method about it or something like that.
Because raisins.
Exactly. Like there's no build up to it. He's just always been that way, kind of thing. Or like he's just lol. He's a killer. Like that's kind of. Honestly, that was my impression of the 2-minute video we watched. That is the supposed first plot of Jeff the Killer. It was just like, lol, I'm a killer. Me and my brother Lou, like this is us when we were teens, and I was making fun of him for wearing glasses, and then I ended up killing a man. I'm killing some people, and I ride a cool van with candy on it.
I don't know if that's canon.
That is from the original video.
Well, I know it's in the video, but that a picture of his van supposedly?
Well, that's the photo that was like put into the video. So like that's obviously pulled from something else, which is like a lot of this stuff is pulled from other things that they then combined into the story.
Yeah, okay, but here's the thing. He doesn't. Okay, maybe he does, but it's never said in any of these.
It's not said in the synopsis. Children. Yeah, no, but I'm also kind of pulling from the video since we did like that was supposed to be the original starting off of Jeff the Killer's story.
Yeah. Okay. So, side note then,
yeah,
because you weren't directly talking about this in the first place, I don't think that van is an accurate van for him and his motives, because that is the kind of van that a child murderer would use. I would think because Jeff's whole motive isn't I hate children. He hates people that fear him and people that sympathize with him. Yeah, kids might run away from him, but I don't know if he's that much of an asshole that he would murder a kid because they don't know any better.
I mean, yeah, it's up to debate. We'd need a little bit more to the story for that. Like for
with
this
him meant to be the most sympathetic murderer in the world. I'm assuming he would not kill children. But again, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we are assuming. And this is just like again, this is what we were able to find of the original Jeff the Killer kind of plot. So, like, take all of our opinion on this with a grain of salt, because this is just like we're going by what we've been able to find and learn on this. But yeah, going like that. That's basically like end of the day. Like, yeah, my whole thought on this original like concept is just like, don't make him that sympathetic. Like even like make him sympathetic up to the point where he starts like just casually murdering people for fun. Because at that point he stops being sympathetic because he's an inhumane killer. So
there are ways to do both. Where like
it's hard.
Yeah, but like you would have to go with some like weird supernatural, or maybe even just a split personality situation or something. Where like his other side, being his other personality, or like a demon that's in him or whatever, wants him to kill. However, like the reason he's doing it is because without that demon possessing his body, he would die from terminal cancer or something. You know, like there's a way to kind of balance it.
Yeah, to kind of like, oh, he's
although
doing
there's
this.
No attempt to do that.
No, there isn't. Also, you actually just kind of brought up something. It's like and it stems from something you mentioned earlier. Where like, because in the video, like Lou kind of looks like Jeff. I was just like, what if Lou and Jeff the Killer are just separate personalities in Jeff's head?
Oh wow!
Like, yeah, like I think that would be a really cool like twist to this part of this version of the plot. of Jeff the Killer, where like he is like, yeah, he's like you brought up, like maybe it's a split personality thing. So that way we get the struggle of Jeff Hodek, where he's like
Or the
grappling
Hodek,
with,
quote unquote, brothers.
yeah, the Hodek brothers are actually like split personalities in Jeff. And then there's another, like there's a more pervasive, aggressive, evil version of Jeff called Jeff the Killer that's in his head as well, that takes over occasionally.
And that would explain a little more why there's so much focus on Lou's child at the end.
Yeah.
Being potentially really unstable.
It's actually,
meanwhile, Jeff is the one that's the unstable one.
Yeah. So it's actually like, yeah, it's like, because like that would be a really great, I think, like twist to implement in this version of the story, because like, yeah, what if it's just all Jeff and it's unfortunate, like because then you also get the sympathy angle of it for him, because he's battling with himself with this psychosis he has.
Yeah, like at the end where they're at the farm or whatever, explain that it's a what was the word I used? Crap.
I was going to go with rehabilitation of some kind.
Well,
like
no, the protective custody thing.
Oh yeah, it's
where it's a different form of like an insane asylum and everything. And it's going through the whole thing talking about Lou and Jeff like they're separate people, and then by the end it's saying like, my time here is rough and all that, but slowly making progress or whatever, and maybe one day, like or like I don't know, it's switched to like a nurse or something or a doctor writing down about Jeff saying like, he's a very dangerous individual, although his Lou persona is a lot more in terms with how he should be, and just like leave it with that.
Even better, what if Lou was his brother, that it was also his first kill when he went when his Jeff the Killer personality kicked in, and then he developed, as a result of the guilt for killing his own brother, he developed a Lou persona.
Yeah,
like. It's like, yeah, because then you can get like, oh, maybe like one day, like I'll be able to make amends with Lou and stuff like that. And it's like, what? And then it cuts to like, yeah, the nurse or the doctor, like a report and stuff like that. And then it explains that like, yeah, Jeff the Killer is suffering from, or Jeff Hodek is suffering from various psychoses, including multiple personality disorder.
Like a nurse is like getting off shift, and there's a new one coming in, and the new one coming in is saying like,
is it Lou or Jeff?
Which one is he today? Is it Jeff or Lou?
Yeah. Oh god, that would be so fucking good. It would make the stories like so much better. Fuck. Yeah. Sesseur, if you're out there, if you've listened to this, first off, I apologize for how brutal we've been, but yeah, here's some suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's.
I'm going with that headcanon now.
Yeah, that's definitely got to be my headcanon now for that, like for just a Jeff the Killer plot. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the story after like finally getting around to like the original version of it and being able to find it. Is it definitely screams of like a kind of a high school like slasher flick or like slasher fan, like slash fanfic kind of thing. And yeah, it just kind of comes off a little too edgelordy, and like we need a lot more detail. Like, I mean, this is a synopsis, but even the original short story, I do in quotes, like there wasn't enough there. So yeah, and yeah, the grammar in this story was horrendous. Like,
it's horrendous. I can't believe I'm saying this, but
yeah, like
because I haven't seen this type of writing before, where it's sectioned out run-ons.
Yeah. But Mikey, these stands for evil. Your actual thoughts. You've been very quiet sitting there in your dung pile.
Yeah, there's a lot of dung. Well, the first and main thing about this story that sort of annoyed me to begin with is that it's a synopsis.
Yeah.
So with that, it's basically a brief summary of a story, but not really a story.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sorry, man. Like this was all I could find on the various wikis and stuff like that. Like this is, and like the short story that I sent you the link of, that was the short story. Like apparently there was no actual written version of it in the early years. It was just that video, and then this was like kind of a synopsis of what they had planned.
So it's a micropasta.
Kinda, yeah.
Not kinda. That's tiny.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like I wonder. Like I had almost like debated if I should like write up like pause each like segment of that video and type it up. Like,
what, just to see how many words it would be?
Just to see how long it would be. I think it'd probably be like less than a page.
Yeah.
But sorry, continue, Mikey.
Yeah. So because of it being a synopsis, it falls into it telling and not showing.
Yeah.
So it's really just a story in the planning stages of, I want this to happen, 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 but there's no real story to elaborate on how these things happen. As we pointed out with the morgue certificate or the death certificate.
Yeah.
Like, how the heck did he get that? Like, we need more details to make this a story.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, they just haven't gotten around to like fleshing out a full short story. They just have ideas for what the short story would be at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other thing that I have in my thoughts, because Review Cultist brought it up, was that the video came first, which tells us that the picture of Jeff the Killer existed before the story.
Yes. So what I've gathered is that on Newgrounds, Killer Jeff made an account and then posted that image onto the Newgrounds site, and that's what sparked interest in the image. And then Sesseur used that image, or maybe was all. I'm still trying to figure out if Killer Jeff and Sesseur are the same person. Again, if somebody wants to correct us, by all means. But they ended up taking that photo and then like made the little story in the video that they made and posted that online I believe in 2007 or 2009. But yeah, so that's where it all kind of stems from. Is from that first that image got posted and then the video and then the video showed up.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, most pastas, the image comes after the fact, and it usually doesn't have anything to tie into the story.
I disagree with you.
Yeah, that's
most of the time when, at least the way I feel, when we read a pasta, the picture came first. Like even that SCP, the statue thing that moves around, that was originally the picture, and then they made a story based off it.
Well, yeah. That's on SCP. That's different.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Mikey, but like I think there's a number. I think it kind of goes both ways. Like it goes like either or. In maybe not equal parts, but like I've seen enough creepypastas that have been like that are clearly inspired by an image, as much as like somebody used an image to like help like kind of further their story like after the fact. But
it doesn't seem like many create an image for the story they wrote, though.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I could be wildly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we are like maybe like the statistics are in your favor on that, but yeah, I think I guess Gamer also thinks that like the majority of them, like the images, like kind of the sparking idea for a story. Like how can I?
It might be like a 51-49 split, but
yeah.
And then my next note here is just about the video, and in my opinion, it was just horrible.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally images and text mixed with music.
Yeah, and the music that's in it now, the one that the version we got, is actually a different song that was playing in the original version. And unfortunately, even with archive.org, I was not able to get the link properly to work.
It's not like a change in song would change anything, though.
No, yeah. Well, apparently it was also apparently it was a little bit more like it was a different kind of song that was not as creepy. So it wasn't even like at least this one was kind of a creepy mood music, whereas the original one was a different song entirely that they used that was not creepy. But yeah, no, it definitely. Again, I hate to keep saying it, but it's to me it's very clear that this was a probably a high schooler who made that video, probably in Microsoft Movie Maker if I had to get, or Windows Movie Maker if I had to guess. But yeah, like the fact that it's just images and text means that you could have easily just had
a web page with images and text, and you'd get the same effect.
I'd say a better effect because some of that text was impossible to read.
Yeah, I
Yes.
had to really strain my eyes to like when I paused a video to see what the heck was being said because it's like blue
White
on like
text over Jeff the Killer's face. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Just it was not as well done as it could have been.
I mean, that's an overstatement of the episode.
And like the end section of text is great because it's white on black. It should have continued.
It
that
should have
all the way
completely been
through,
that. Yeah,
where it's just been like, here's a picture of Jeff the Killer, fade to black,
Here's a black-
words,
yeah.
fade back to
No.
a picture, words.
Yeah. Yep.
Or rather, picture up, picture down, words, picture up, picture down, words.
Yeah, exactly. It should have definitely been like had the words be the intermediary between images.
Yeah.
Kind of like an
Mhm.
old timey silent film.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now I want to.
Yeah.
Now I want to see a Jeff the Killer silent film
Silent film.
rendition. Like somebody make like maybe not this story, maybe not this take on the story, but like come up, or even maybe not even Jeff the Killer. Like if you want to be a little bit more original. But yeah, I want to see a silent film slasher, like kind of like origin story or something that posted somewhere online. That might be a project for me to do later on if I feel
Like a ye
creative.
olde slasher film from back in the day.
Yeah. It could go well with a Cthulhu scenario, even like a 1920 style Cthulhu scenario. But I digress again.
Yeah, that's the majority of the actual thoughts I have.
All right, gamer.
On to me. So, in regards to me reading the first paragraph, the first thing I thought when I started reading is this a sequel to the quote unquote traditional first one that we read? Because it was giving very quick and it's giving like a very quick and dirty rundown to those past events. It seemed like
It did seem like it.
yeah, it's talking about like what life is like for Jeff after all that, which in itself is an interesting enough story, but that's not the case. So right from the get-go, I was stumbling immediately. That first step was a doozy.
Yeah, you fell right into the manure.
I did. And then in regards to the second paragraph, where it's talking about the White Knights coming to his rescue and how he doesn't care about them or anything like that. When I'm reading that, I'm like, is this a meta commentary by the original creator about how much the fans of the story romanticize Jeff the Killer?
Oh my god!
It really felt like it, like laying it on hard. It's him just being like, Jeff does not care about you. Why don't you get it?
Yeah, no, it's like again, it's like the attitude a lot of people have towards like people who fall in love with killers in jail. And it's like they murdered people, like they ate that guy ate a man, and then like he dumped the what body parts he didn't want to eat in a dumpster and mailed like a hand to the family members, and then like ran off to Paris before he was caught. Like, the only reason you like this guy is because he's a bad boy, because he ate people, and also he looks pretty, because he was actually a male model prior to his, apparent serial killer cannibalism.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I feel like that's also kind of the thing with, like, Jeff the Killer. Is like, a lot of people, for some reason, like, think he's a pretty boy.
Oh, of course. Every single iteration of him, he has two aspects. He is the quote-unquote attractive and quote-unquote sympathetic mass murderer.
Yeah.
That's like his thing. That's his shtick.
And not even a mass murderer, just a mass murderer.
Yeah, mass.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like serial murderer. Yeah. Just going after Kellogg's.
Hell yeah. I was going to go there, but I'm like, I punned him enough.
No,
It's
and
fine.
then I apparently have gotten Stockholm syndrome. I'm now in Sweden, or Norway, where I can't remember which one has Stockholm, which is the name of a city.
It's
Is it Sweden?
Yeah.
I'm
so 99% sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like I'm in Sweden now. Yeah. So anyway, going back to what your thoughts on it. So
yes. Yes. Okay, so moving on here. My next part is basically it says like he had an easygoing life and his life just got started shortly before the event of 2007 changed his life for good.
Yeah.
So it's like his life just got started right before the event. Like I was still in the mindset of him being an older teenager at that point. So if his life just started then, is he like a clone or something? And he just popped out as a teenager immediately? He's only been in this world for a couple of years total, and that's why he doesn't function correctly.
Yeah, but that wasn't the case. It's like his life was ahead of him.
What
Like
if?
he was. Oh, okay.
That's what
We're
I'm
gonna go with
saying.
a what if. We're going with we're going with some.
Here.
Okay.
What
All
if
right,
he's
go
just
for it.
a
Yeah.
clone,
What if?
and he's like a test tube baby that just popped out recently? That's what I'm saying. It straight says his life just got started shortly before the event of 2007. So unless he was carrying the acid as an infant, which I doubt he did.
Yeah. So he was. I get what you're saying. It's so like, what if he's like basically like some kind of a clone model of some kind of like. So we're going back. So we're in the 2080s or 2090s maybe, because I think the 2090s is when cloning and like genetic engineering and stuff was kind of a big thing. So
yeah, of course.
So that's when we get like basically like hey, would you like some children? Have clones. Like, and so that's where we get like, yeah, it's a clone. So like maybe there's some defects in the process of cloning, and that's what inspires some of the psychoses and such. So like all it needs is one good like kick in the appearance, or like something of that kind of a nature, like getting acid splashed on you while you're doing some work for your foster clone family, or for your owner. What? That's going in some dark like.
You'd be parents. It'd be equivalent of adopting a child.
Yeah,
you're adopting a child that's already 18.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
and that child is just born.
Do you want a son, like, and not have to deal with any of the past 18 years? Have a clone.
Mm-hmm. Although it turns out that a child going through the life of being a child and being inconvenienced by everything and having to wear diapers and all that just like builds yourself up, like your toughness, so you can like withstand the
rigors of the
pressures of adult life and everything. So because the clone hasn't gone through that, he's like super sensitive to everything. So if anything goes wrong, he just immediately snaps.
Yeah, or it's a defect in the cloning procedure. Like, like speed cloning like may cause like unintentional aging effects or death, or psychological issues with the cloned brain. Like there might be like some chemicals, unfortunately, like some chemical levels in the brain may cause psychoses and such. And
I'm sure there's a huge paragraph of tiny font that no one can read when they're signing the contract to get a clone.
Yeah, to get their own clone teenager. Although, why you would want a clone teenager? Like, well, why would you want a teenager like a clone that is set to start as a angsty, prepubescent child, like a young adult? Is beyond me, but
and the parents are just gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, or maybe it's like in the 2090s that's like the new trend. Like, like not have to worry about all the like diapers and stuff like that. Just have like get to the rebellious point. Like they just want to have the experience of having a rebellious child.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, wow. We've added on to the future mythology of our own head canons for Al Dente Rigor Mortis.
Of our 20 etc. series.
You realize one day I'm going to have to just straight up run a Cyberpunk or Shadowrun, probably more Shadowrun, but like Shadowrun game where you guys are just like dealing with like these weird future tech like problems and stuff like that we've like extrapolated and built off of from like our talks about creepypastas.
Yeah.
It's going to happen one day.
Yeah.
One day.
I'm down. That's fine. Okay, moving on. Mm-hmm. So, talking about like the cop. It says the cop was going in for the arrest, but was swiftly killed by Lou. As soon as I read that, I'm like, oh, okay then. So he's gone down the path of murder as well. Okay then. Like it was so bluntly just thrown out there that he's also murdering.
Well,
I thought it was a situation. Huh?
Oh, I was gonna say I saw it coming because the video really kind of stated that they both were killers.
I didn't watch the video first.
That might have been on me because I did. It was the second link.
Yeah.
So.
I read this first. Yeah. So I assumed that that Lou was just a quote unquote normal individual trying to help his brother who's struggling with not murdering. And then all of a sudden he just murders. Yeah. It was shocking and wasn't really telegraphed very well. But not in a way that's like a twist. It just kind of it's like there was missing information.
Yeah.
So overall, the way that this story felt to me, I know it says it's a fucking short story synopsis. But like, I really wanted it to just read the story. And the way that this sounded, it sounded as if someone watched a movie last night and they sat down with you and explained it really quickly to you, but glossed over a bunch of things.
Like you're supposed to get certain things, but like only if you watched the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's why it wasn't mentioned that he's a doctor or nothing, because there was clearly a scene where he's a doctor and everything. You should know that. It's like, oh wait, no, you didn't see the movie. Whoops.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I agree with you because, like, it's like we are supposed to, like, there's supposed to be a short story, but as far as I can tell, there is no full short story that Sesseur has made or has put out there, except for that video, and that wasn't really any more helpful.
Yeah, it's weird that because there's a synopsis to this. It feels like there is another story that is massive and well thought out and very detailed, and this is a short form version of it, but there isn't,
because they haven't put it out there yet. Like, they're still working on it. Is what is the vibe I'm getting, and I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like. Like, that they have this whole plan that they've been, like, plotting out, and they've been doing writing before, because there are other stories that they've done. I don't think necessarily about Jeff the Killer, but of, like, other things in their own little, like, universe and stuff. And Jeff the Killer's in there, but because, like, maybe it's because, like, Jeff the Killer took off and, like, became a thing of its own. Like, maybe it's gone on the back burner of their projects and stuff like that. Or maybe it's somewhere out there that we just haven't found yet. But yeah, it seems like we are missing a short story we're missing a story that is a lot more in depth than that this synopsis is kind of alluding to, with an A, not an E. Bring it all back.
Next note is kind of applicable because it's in regards to when I first read it. This is like the third time I've said this, but when I first read this, it's saying Lou wasn't on board at first, but he was agreed because he could pull some strings to get a death certificate. At this point, I still thought he was a little child, so I was extremely confused. But again, moving on. Video. Okay. How do you know that this is Sasser's video?
Honestly, man, this is about, like, I am maybe 90% sure this is the actual video minus the music that was initially intended. I went searching.
Video re-uploaded by someone else?
Yes, I searched for the original using dead links and trying archive.org. I could not find the original one even through archive.org. Like, no one had saved it in those 8 years on archive.org. So I came upon this one, I believe, while just kind of, like, going through some Reddit links about Sesseur's original story, and somebody had a link to this stating that it was the same video but a different music in the background that somebody re-uploaded.
Yeah.
So best as I can tell, the link that's in our description and the video that we all watched is the video and the plot that was originally posted out there. It's just minus the original music. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. Somebody can correct us in the comments and tell us how poorly we are at researching. I dug, man. I scoured the internet for, like, through several wikis and through several Reddit threads trying to find any kind of source that would link us to the proper video. So, like, I wanted us to tackle the original Sesseur version of Jeff the Killer before we went into Jeffuary with the other ones that we have planned. So, like, start from the ground up.
Sure.
So, but yeah.
My other notes on the video is there's way too many and way too long musical interludes in between the texts. Like, it takes really long time to switch between everything.
Yeah.
Like, also, it hangs on each picture way too long before and after the text.
Yeah. Also, that silent film like format would have worked a lot better. Like, having black title cards between images.
Yeah. Or even just, like, text have a background on it. So, like, it's like traditional subtitles when you're watching. We put subtitles on for, like, a TV show.
Oh, okay. So, like,
black
where they're
background
outlined
with white text on it, but it's just like at the bottom.
Yeah, I did like a black. Sorry. Continue.
Oh, go ahead. You were going to say what I was going to say.
No. Then you continue, because this is your
okay.
your section.
Yeah, just a black bar with white text on it.
Yeah, that, or like an outline around the text, so that it and the outline is a contrasting, like, tone, like, so it's either white or black depending on what's going on the scene.
Yeah, that works too, for sure.
Yeah.
And then in regards to the actual story being told through the video, I was surprised that was the extent of the story, because the first, like, 9/10 of it doesn't really seem like it's the story. It's just, like, small amounts of setup. Like, this is Jeff. This is Lou. He's a murderer. Here's some spiders. Anyways, here's the actual story. And that's the last 1/10 of this 2-minute long video, and it just like flies through it.
Yeah.
And it ended up just being a household accident, and he was changed in some way, but it's not mentioned. So I can see why people took this and modified it as much as they did to give actual reason behind his motives.
Yeah, like clearly somebody saw this video or saw the image and was like, okay, this video is kind of silly again, it garnered a lot of popularity over its 8-year exposure online, like on YouTube before it was taken down. But I can see why somebody later down the road saw this and was like, okay, I can make a way, like, I don't mean to actually say this like in this tone, but it's like, okay, I can make a way better origin story for Jeff the Killer than this, or give it an origin story that's a little bit more interesting than what we're seeing here. And then that's what we got with the version that everyone knows about of Jeff the Killer, where like he was pushed around. And I mean, like, I don't like to say it, but it almost feels like that one like is definitely an improvement on this version. But that's only because we don't have a lot of stuff here to give us like it seemed like there's not enough here, or things are missing from the vision that Sesseur had for Jeff the Killer, because they didn't mention
it. And that may just be lost because it's a synopsis that we read, and it's a tiny little idea video from a decade ago.
Yeah. So
we don't have the full story as written by the original author, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of shocked that this was released, the synopsis rather, was released last year.
Yeah, it's like, well,
I know we've said it a lot. Huge run-ons. I kind of figured if this person's been doing a lot of writing, they wouldn't make that mistake.
Yeah,
I kind of figured that this was released around the same time as the video itself, like high school era kind of deal.
Yeah, you would think, because at this point, if they were in high school when they posted the original video, they are not in high school now. They might even be out of college at this point.
For sure.
And yet they're I don't mean to be this mean, but like their grammar's still this kind of poor quality. Unless, again, like maybe English isn't their first language. Like maybe there's an issue there or a barrier there.
Even if it is, though,
yeah,
I could see this being a like not a synopsis, but it's like a brainstorming segment that's just posted online.
Yeah,
where it's just, I'm going to vomit information. That sounds bad, but I'm basically just going to throw all the information down on paper, have it all there, so it's somewhat together, so I can think about it and think about how to elaborate on it and make an actual story on it.
And maybe that because it's in his journals. It's not actually a pro that is in his art gallery in DeviantArt, which you can do. You can post stories there as a pro, or as as in the writing pros kind of like thing, not like PROS. But yeah, like this is like, and the journal entries, sometimes people use them for like writing stories, but most of the time, from what my experience, they use them for like writing down like just like random ideas or like thoughts that they have. So like maybe that's what this is. It's just supposed to be intended as a like a brain dump to kind of get their ideas of like what their version of Jeff the Killer was supposed to be. But yeah, so maybe that's the reasoning for the poor grammar, is just like how they just dumped it all onto digital paper.
Just to get the information out.
Yeah.
So it's sort of unfair in a way that it is judging it on terms of it being a polished, finished story, when if its actual intent is just meant to be brainstorming and to get some comments back before the actual full story is done.
Yeah. And I mean, if they are listening and they've got to this point, we are sorry for being so brutally honest on what is effectively a synopsis, but like this is all we have to go on for the original plot of Jeff the Killer.
Yeah.
So I guess with that kind of out of the way, I guess we'll move on to final thoughts and bring this to a close. So after checking out this supposed video story, again, I'm 90% sure this is the original story as intended that was posted. Just somebody re-uploaded it. And with the synopsis that we got from the original author of their vision of like what Jeff the Killer was, it sort of astounds me how it kicked off, like how the Jeff the Killer fandom kicked off in the first place. Like we kind of were talking about like just a few moments ago. My guess is this was all done in in high school in the mid 2000s, and at that time, this kind of thing was the creepypasta like environment on the internet, like the kind of like creepy stuff that people were posting on the internet, and it was circulating around like young groups of people, like because even around like the mid 2000s, the internet was still fairly new to a lot of folks, and especially to like tweens and teens, like in high school. At least that's how I kind of feel. Like 2007, 2005. Like I mean, I think I was around high school around that time, or like around theirs, and like. We had like dogpile.com and like a bunch of like really primitive stuff that doesn't exist anymore in terms of internet. Like even Wikipedia was like a lot more primitive than what it was. And I, like that was my kind of introduction to like some of these like characters and stuff like that. And like then there was like E-Bomb's World, and Newgrounds was a thing, I think was a very prominent thing back then as well.
Yeah.
And so like the maturity level on the internet and like the was definitely like almost like kind of like teens and high school kind of level maturity. So that's my guess as to like why this took off, was that like people just didn't like, people were still like very young on the internet at that time, at that stage. And then someone like the creator of the more well-known creepypasta that's been circulating saw this and was like, I want to make my own origin for this killer, and decided to do their own fan fiction. And then that was the one that kind of took hold, because it was actually as kind of haphazard as that story is, it was much more coherent as a story than the video was. And then it got copy pasted across the internet along with the imagery of Jeff the Killer, like with the iconic image and stuff. And then other people started doing fan stories. Like that's where we got like Jeff the Killer versus Slender Man, or Jane the Killer and Jeff the Killer versus Jane the Killer, and then like all the other ones.
Homicidal Lou.
Yeah, Homicidal Lou. From I think a different country. Is that, I think Homicidal Lou, like the author is from Spain or South America. Because we had to translate that one when we did that so long ago. So like, yeah, it was just kind of like it's spiraled in and evolved into the Jeff the Killer lore and stories that we know today, or that we hear about today. It's kind of like the Grifter in a sense, which is funny because that was our last episode that we just did, like for New Year's. Mm-hmm. And we're now tackling again like the seedling that grew out of control from the original author into an iconic creepypasta that is now like an internet myth, or an internet myth cycle with all the different like iterations and Jeff the Killer like fanfics and stories that people have made. So
I do agree with you on pretty much all those points. However, I do think that the main reason that Jeff the Killer took off is just because of how like interesting the art is. I
think it's a mix
like
of
that alone. I think is holding it.
Yeah, I think that, and also like a lot of teens relate to the angstiness of what's being told in the stories, both like this one and even the new story, like the later iterations. Because like he's treated like this angsty teen who like hates the world and stuff. And a lot of teens around that time of their lives, kind of get those same kind of like mentalities and opinions. So like they can really relate to it. And then we get like concept art and people like fanboying and fangirling all over them and stuff like that. And that's where we get like a majority of the fandom. And then they grow up and get older and start like kind of making it into something more interesting and more mature. Like, and that's where we're going to get like some of the later stage stuff, like where they're trying to actually make Jeff the Killer good and scary. So yeah, it's definitely it's another historic look at a creepypasta icon from the ground up. And that's why I wanted to start it. Like, that's why we're all in this fertilizer field, looking at the initial groundwork of what is effectively a myth cycle on the internet of Jeff the Killer. So that's why I have you guys all out on the farm.
Yeah, because everything needs fertilizer if you want it to grow, right?
Yeah, it's honestly the premise of one of our Patreon specific episode shows, Plot Growers, where we would take some of the some material that I've made that I for one know is like first draft material or cringy, and then we'd read it and reevaluate it and try to build something better out of it. Like that's kind of what has happened here and what's happened with several other creepypasta icons is that they start off in this kind of first draft, low end kind of material or content, and then they, through the years of people looking at it and rebuilding it and like cultivating it for something else and something new, we get this. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, yeah, it's building up it's making something more and more developed as it goes, like through a natural organic process. The other issue, though, is like kind of like with some other creepypastas, like Seed Eater experience. The original author loses control of their idea and their concept in some ways. Like I have a feeling like maybe perhaps one of the reasons why we haven't gotten a full version of Sessure's stories, because it's gone out of their control, and so maybe it's just hit the back burner while they work on other things that are more original to them.
Yeah, because it's not really their story anymore.
Yeah, and
everyone's taking it.
Yeah, and that's complete conjecture on my part. Like, I'm just assuming that, I'm theorizing that, because like it's happened in the past, and so like there's some correlations. But if that,
and in the situation where you wrote, let's say you wrote that story, you would have that same feeling, right? Like if everyone took over, it's not really your thing anymore.
Exactly. And I mean,
just
like,
based on me knowing you, I feel like you would have that same feeling.
Yeah, I would be probably like, I mean, on one side of me, I'd probably be like, oh man, this is cool that my character is taken off. But like at a certain point, it's like, is it even mine anymore, kind of thing. And like we've had that happen recently with like the Siren Head character from Trevor Henderson. He made this cool character, and like literally within a year had to basically combat people who were just basically taking it willy-nilly because, oh, it's on the internet, it's free from copyright, which is such a terrible take. But yeah, I digress. Like it, unless you purposely put something out there to and like leave like yeah, this is for anybody to use kind of thing. Like respect the copyright of somebody's work, or like it's fine to do like fan art, but cite, but like reference your sources and stuff like that. But yeah, this story, like Jeff the Killer definitely popped up in a time of the internet where like that kind of stuff was just willy nilly, like, oh, it's on the internet, therefore it's copyright free. So that's like love it or hate it, like hit or miss kind of thing. Like that's basically kind of the history of internet fiction, is like it gets taken by a community, whether you like it or not, and turned into something great or better than or different or more popular than you originally intended. And I think that's what's happened here with Jeff the Killer. Is we started off with this little video and that image, and then it just spiraled into the fandom we have now.
When you make a monster, it might survive long enough to be its own kind of consciousness and develop on its own without you being able to help it anymore. Yeah, you might have your own like mythos, like evolve from it, just from like the masses taking it. So as it stands, though, like this is final thought stuff. As it stands, for the original Seedling, I can't recommend it. It's not much of a story, the video. It's definitely the core idea of what Jeff the Killer became, but it's not really cohesive as terms of a story, at least as it is now. And the synopsis tries to add in things, but it's the synopsis. It's not the full short story or full story. So yeah, I really can't give it a pass compared to like creepypastas today and such, much like the Grifter kind of thing. Yeah, my recommendation is I can't recommend this original version. Mikey, these stands for evil.
Well, as I stated before, this is a synopsis, and as such, it can only go so far. And unfortunately, the downside of synopsis is that it goes, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, with no real fleshed out story to it. So we get a lot of stuff told to us, not shown to us, which is what you want in a story. So that, to me, this feels sort of like it's a draft, which it probably was, where he was just writing down his thoughts, which is a practice of writing down stories. But when you're actually supposed to go back to those thoughts and elaborate on them. So unfortunately, as it is, and even the video, I cannot recommend.
All right, Gamer.
I mean, I'm probably going to be parroting a lot of what you guys are saying as well, because that's all the honest truth. I'm so confused watching and reading all of this, because I went in here assuming that I'm reading an old scripture of creepypasta from the ancient times, the long, long ago.
Ah, yes, the
Like
mid 2000s.
Yeah, opening up a freaking scroll of text, But so because I was going in here being like, okay, this is the first one. I didn't even look at the time that this synopsis was posted. So it's current writing. So it's almost like this is two separate creepypastas that we took care of today. The supposed original, and then this synopsis, which is a modern take on what part of an expanded story would potentially be.
Yeah, it's like a modern take on what the author originally intended for their vision of Jeff the Killer.
Yeah, but man, it was just.
And I mean, again, like if there had been a short story for us to discuss, like properly, like a full short story that had been posted somewhere, that was Sesseur's version, I would have suggested that one. But this is all I could find.
Oh, for sure.
Like, this was literally the source material for various wikis and wiki entries on this version of Jeff the Killer.
Mm-hmm.
This image, this write up, the image that was posted by Killer Jeff, and the video are what make up the Sesseur version of Jeff there. So,
hey, the image isn't even posted on the synopsis.
No.
Huh. But either way, this reading and watching all this has been like a weird roller coaster ride of oddities, of me being confused when this takes place, confused about the ages of the characters. The structure of the old video, as I've mentioned, is a little strange and hard to read.
Yeah.
There's no real clear motive for Jeff. I don't know whether or not this synopsis is structured the way it is as a jab at how people have taken over Jeff the Killer and how everyone sympathizes with him and they're wrong, they shouldn't.
Yeah, it certainly might be.
There's so many different ways it could go, but because none of them are solidified, I don't know which way it's meant to go,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of confusing.
Yeah. Like it certainly might be like a kind of a cathartic thing. It's like where like they hate all the people that are pandering to Jeff because like as kind of a cathartic like social commentary on like the fandom that took over the entity, the character.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not sure. But yeah, it's also because like it is a confusing thing because it's like it's less like finding like a scroll of scripture of like the original version and more of just finding like bits and pieces of a broken pottery that had like had a kind of a diagram on the side of it that would tell the story.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
Kind of like finding like a broken piece of pottery that would like from like the ancient times that had like that you had to kind of stitch together to get most of the story that was being told on the pottery.
Mm.
Yeah, or finding fragments.
You had to like get into like a library and bust the floor open. And then there was like a whole passageway that's filled with gasoline, and there's a whole bunch of rats that you have to get past. But by the time you get to the end, there's like a sarcophagus there, and you push the lid over, and then on the shield, there's like the rest of it.
Yeah, but then you have to then some Nazis set down some fire on the gasoline.
They weren't Nazis.
Were they
were
not?
The brothers of the.
Oh shoot, you're right. Yeah, those are the guys that did that. Right. Okay, sorry. No, I was getting. Well, I mean, Nazis were in the movie, but
yes, they were.
It was not. Yeah, they were not the ones who set the fire there.
No,
it was
regardless.
the Brotherhood. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Regardless, in its current state, I also can't recommend it. I don't for the reasons I just said. I don't know the direction it's meant to go in. I don't understand the sympathy that this character is supposed to have. I don't even know if the author is trying to tell us we should have sympathy or tell us that we should not, because it's really heavy-handed on both sides of that. Because by the end, he's apparently he has a new life and everything, and he's trying to be normal. So we're supposed to sympathize with him, right? Even though he's telling us we shouldn't sympathize with him. It's so confusing.
Yeah, mixed messages.
Yeah. So if it was a little more direct in what it's wanting to do and everything was explained a little bit more, like how the hell he got a second chance, meanwhile he's a serial killer, it needs more. I know it's a synopsis, but with what it is, I was just too confused, so I can't recommend.
Okay.
Although with my headcanon of him being split personality and being Lou as a second personality in his own head, hell yeah.
Like, yeah, that in itself could be a derivative of Jeff the Killer, where it's just, where like that right there could be an entire new entry to the Jeff the Killer mythos.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would totally be down for that, because it makes it takes away some of the more paranormal stuff that tends to creep into Jeff the Killer stories, and make him completely just mundane, as like he's just a psychotic serial killer who's struggling, who's also a victim of who's struggling with this dark personality that's in his head, that
which adds to the sympathy of the character, where he's actually doing his best to hold it back, but he can't.
It's a way to develop that sympathy in a more like reasonable way, other than just being like high school angsty, like, oh, I love this character because he's doing exactly what I fantasize about doing sometimes. Where it's like, this one's a lot more like, it gives it a little bit more, it gives way more character. He's not just a copy, like a cardboard cutout of a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. He's not sympathetic because we're being told that we should sympathize with him. We're being shown why.
Exactly. So all around, though, won't recommend the original Seedlings, but there's definitely some good fertilizer here to build off on, and it's probably why the fandom took off the way it did.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
we came up with multiple different potentials for this story just in our little rundown.
Yeah, between the rundown, between the Grammar Inquisition, and between our actual thoughts. So,
well, I meant rundown as the entire thing, but yes.
Yeah. So that was this week's episode, and our first episode of Jeffuary 2021, which I just realized basically suggests that there will be further Jeffuaries in the future. But if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below, where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. Please let us know if there's something we've missed, or if there's something that's off about our details and information here. Please let us know. We would love to hear from you, which way. And you can also get a hold of us on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow because his name's really long. I just like going by it.
It's glossing over it now. It's not like a fun bit anymore. Maybe let's change my name now.
No. Or you can also get a hold of me at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com, where you can leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, both of like other things or Jeff the Killer. SCPs, spooky internet creepiness. Send it to us, and we will discuss it and review it. And if you'd like to help support the show, you can go to Patreon, look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis, and select the back tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to the listeners of the show and the writers of these stories, regardless of us ripping these stories a new one, or being critical, like brutally honest on a story, thank you. Because if you weren't listening to the show, it would be like screaming into the void. Whenever we get comments, I relay them to the guys, and we always appreciate it because it brightens our day. And to the writers of these stories, if you weren't writing these stories or these entries or these bits of fiction, these bits of microfiction, we wouldn't have anything to read and discuss and expand on and like headcanon things and like be entertained ourselves. So thank you. This is all a learning process. So honestly, from the bottom of my cultist heart, thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
This has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis for Jeffuary. Sleep well and go to sleep.